Hello, everyone, and welcome to Edge Talk Radio. My name is Angela Zabel, that's me, and today we are going to be talking about secrets of sacred geometry with authors Gregory and Gail Hoag. And they're from Colorado. It's going to be so much fun. They have so much information. I've been looking through their information, and it is very interesting, and I think you will find it interesting today too. And so, who am I? I am Angela Zabel. I have been connected to spirit my entire life, working with a team in the non-physical, sharing messages with a multitude of realms with people around the world. I am a teacher, coach, medium, radio show host, writer, retreat host, gallery speaker, and I do speaking engagements, working online, offering private guidance, mediumship, intuition, and also online and in person. I also offer classes and the Amplified Universe membership. This is a membership growing our connection to us, our world, all that is in it, and our role in it. This is sharing knowledge and working with others throughout the world. You can find more about me. I'm pretty much on most of the social media aspects. Go to my website, angelazabel.com. And today we are here with Edge Magazine. Edge Magazine is the leading media, events, and resource dedicated to all aspects of holistic living, health, wellness, and the mysteries beyond. They are sharing information, wisdom, and resources, committed and promoting businesses, organizations, and individuals who support our collective journey to wholeness and balance. They're currently distributed in over 30 states plus Canada, with over 17,000 magazines per printing, and that's going up pretty much every month. And they also have a vibrant online magazine with over 42,000 people reached per month. Have the magazine shipped direct to your door, stay up to date with their newsletter, or become a drop spot. You can find out more at edgemagazine.net. And today we are here with Gregory and Gail Hoag, and with over 4 decades of dedicated expertise in the realm of sacred geometry. Gail and Gregory have pioneered groundbreaking technologies and new discoveries that have transformed the lives of tens of thousands across the globe with their teaching and tools. They have harnessed the power of the divine archetypes to amplify higher dimensional energies and elevate the human experience, catalyzing personal and spiritual growth. And that is a big passion of mine, so I can't wait to get into this. Hoags are also known as speakers and teachers, revealing how the universal patterns displayed in sacred geometry play a foundational role in the elevation of consciousness. We are here today to discover the profound wisdom and innovation that have made Gail and Gregory esteemed leaders in the world of sacred geometry. Through their lifelong dedication, they continue to inspire and guide countless individuals towards a path of higher consciousness, well-being, and profound connection. Today, they will be revealing insights from their acclaimed new bestseller, Sacred Geometry, the Universal Language of Divine Alignment, and some of their social medias. And they have free offers for our listeners, and they will be in the links below. So they have a free chapter 1 about consciousness from their book, Sacred Geometry, the Universal Language of Divine Alignment, and also a meditation with universal patterns of sacred geometry, attunements, how to connect to your higher guidance, pathways used by spirit. Those links are down below, and they are coming from their website, theconnecttoall.com. And they're also on Facebook under Metaform Sacred Geometry Tools, LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube. So make sure to check out more about Gregory and Gail, because they had much, much more to offer than we could ever cover in this interview. So, Gregory and Gail, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you so much. And I have to ask, how in the world did you start into sacred geometry?
Oh boy.
Well, you know, Angela, that when there's something that our soul wants us to do and spirit wants us to do, one way or another, it is going to show up, right? And
Absolutely.
sometimes, it's a surprise because, it's not necessarily on our radar. We didn't go to school learning about sacred geometry. I really did enjoy geometry when I was in school.
Oh,
And sometimes people will say to us, oh, if I had learned geometry back during school the way you guys are talking about it, I would have loved it.
I think you
But
two can be teachers on it. That would be fun.
well, for sure we are. As an artist, I spent much of my life as an artist, and a very curious, intuitive, connected person. And so I wanted to understand universe. I wanted to understand what creates this amazing life, this physical life that we're in. And sacred geometry has really shown up as that way to understand how, we all start out as just energy, right? Just pure, amorphous, unformed energy. Well, how does it get into this structure, this form that is so amazing, where everything has a basis that has commonality, and yet there's all of these incredible differences, variations. Everything is significant in how every different snowflake has its own unique way of appearing, even though structurally it's all the same. And that's magical. So sacred geometry, it really helps us understand that. And when I was looking, just looking out around me as an artist, trying to understand what this presence is and how to put it into physical work,
Mm.
I just kept going deeper. I would just love looking out at the differences, the vibration of the colors in the flowers and the grasses and the trees and the skyscapes.
Oh.
And so, that really was my original hook in sacred geometry. And then when I was
Then.
in this goes back into the very early 70s, I found the work of Buckminster Fuller. And if you're familiar with Fuller, he's the one who created the geodesic dome, an extraordinary thinker, just a real amazing wizard creator, and a geometer. He understood geometry. And I gobbled up his work. I loved his work. And he started talking about how energy works in certain patterns and the way that the tetrahedron works and the closest packing of spheres and all this stuff. And it just lit me up. And when Fuller passed away in the it was actually early to mid 80s,
Mhm.
I at that point had also been opening myself up to being a channel. And when he passed, knowing that consciousness doesn't just go away, it doesn't evaporate, it's still accessible on another level, but still accessible. So I put myself out there and said, I'd love to learn more. And if you'll be willing to teach me, I would love to receive that. So after a number of times of sitting in meditation, I saw him come. I saw him come into me and start teaching me more and more about what he was doing in geometry. And it got too technical for me because I don't have a background in science and math. And so I got to a point, I'm actually a very practical person. And I just said, you know, if if you want to keep on this level, either send me somebody that I can do something with this information, or just like, tamp it down. And within, oh gosh, maybe a week or two, that's where I found Gregory. And we bumped into each other in Boulder, Colorado. And he had a box of geometries. And they were all these different tetrahedrons and shapes. And I put my hand over it and I could feel the energy. And I said to him, do you know the work of Buckminster Fuller? And he didn't. And I said, well, you need to learn it. So that's how I actually got started with this technology getting together with Gregory and the exploration of sacred geometry.
I think it's funny in the fact of you never know how you're gonna bring people together. And Greggy, how did you feel about you were like kind of drawn to Gail kind of put out that she needed to find you?
Well, the truth is, I needed to find her as well. Over a year before we met, I was taking a class, and this was a class on color and pattern and different things like that, that someone handed me a card and said, you need to meet this woman. And Gail had made just a few of these handmade cards where she had taped a photograph of one of her paintings to the back. And so I stuck it in my wallet, and it was the only card I carried in my wallet. And after Gail and I were going together for a couple of weeks, I pulled it out and I said, this is you, isn't it? And it's, universe has so many ways of working to get us onto the right path. And for me, the reason I was carrying around this box of geometries is that, I think about 5 years earlier, I had built a pyramid with a friend that cost over $250,000 in today's dollars at that time. And it was only 10 feet high, but all of this technology, large crystals, and we took turns sleeping in it, and
Nice.
it set off my Kundalini. And that is this energy that flows up from the earth and opens the different chakras within your body. And it can be very painful and difficult at times. And that's what it was, very challenging for me for years. And when I began to get it into balance, I started connecting with higher dimensional beings and higher understanding. And they were directing me into building certain geometries and working with certain materials. And even though I had studied mostly science in college, that by the time I got to this place, probably about 15 years after graduating, and excuse me, spending a lot of time with different spiritual masters, it took me to a whole other level. Excuse me.
Do you have something to drink?
I love that. I love the synchronicity that the universe will put together and how they always say the stars align and everything moves around and you two are both a testament to that. I do believe
Mhm.
things are going to work together.
And the universe has backup plans, it's brilliant because it knows that, one attempt doesn't always do it. You've got to cover your bases. And so universe does, because sometimes we're a little dense and we don't quite follow the tap that's coming in, right?
That I'm guilty of that. And so this is what's been going on. We've been together for 40 years, and
Nice.
it's been a wonderful relationship with higher dimensions and the divine. And that's why we wrote our new book to describe what it is we've been doing. And in a way, it took us until now, this year, to finally publish our book, because we were doing what we were told, but didn't always understand why or see the reasoning behind certain geometries working with energy and others not, and how it relates to the way universe works and the way universe creates everything from an atom and molecule following particular patterns to the galaxies and the universe itself and the planets and what's going on with the sun, the moon, and the earth in their very precise diameters relating to certain aspects of the way the human body is created. And when we bring those numbers, those patterns into this physical reality, it starts shifting our vibration because we are so separated from the depth of our soul, the depth of who we are. We're really multi-dimensional beings that operate on the fourth dimension, fifth, sixth, all the way up to soul. And we, even in the emotional body, which surrounds our physical body, many people can see the colors that reflect those emotions that we're experiencing. But when we start understanding this is on an unseen level for most people, this is another dimension. And it's only one of many different aspects of creation that we have the potential to open up to understand more, to be more supported in our process. And that's been our journey over the last 40 years now, and working with all of these tools that we build to help people connect with that higher aspect of themselves.
Well, I appreciate that both of you have kind of went out of the norm to pursue this, to keep going. You guys really were the groundbreakers. You know, you're going forward when a lot of people weren't out there yet. There's a lot more people now and a lot more people looking for it. And it's a lot more normal now than what it ever has been before.
That's for sure. You know, years ago when we first got together, our focus was to create these different geometries and to show people how it could really make a difference in their lives, that their tools, their ways of being able to elevate their consciousness, just the way the ancients understood that. That's why they created those structures, whether, you know, they're temples, pyramids, Stonehenge, you know, sacred sites, whatever it was. They understood that each one of us needs a spark and a place and a way to be able to connect to the higher levels of who we are. So, you know, it's interesting that when we first started knowing that sacred geometry was really important, really valuable, and going deeper into understanding, you know, the nuts and bolts of it, we'd go to shows and we would display our products, and they're beautiful, and people would come and they'd look at them and they'd go, "What is that?" And we'd give them a little explanation, and then they'd get this glazed look on their face like, "What?" And then they just sort of smile and walk away. And then there were a few people, of course, that went, "Wow." But the vast majority of people were not ready back in the that would be in like the mid 1980s.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's quite different now. Now, you know, you can talk about multidimensional and consciousness and all kinds of stuff, and people are right there with you. It's it's really fun.
That's the one thing with when you two, when I was looking through your information and you talked about the multidimensionality, and for me, that's something is near and dear to my heart because we are definitely not one dimension. We are so, so many, and we can access all of those different aspects of our dimensionality. And with you two having those tools to help people realize there are more and to help them in that vibrational aspect to access some of those other dimensions of their own multidimensionality, I think is so key. And I'm hoping for the people listening, if you're just listening, you may want to go in and watch the episode because there is some amazing multidimensional and sacred geometry in the photos or in our video here. So you definitely want to take it. So you have ones behind you, and those, I take it, are ones that you have created, Gregory?
Yes, they are. And they're based on many of the aspects of creation, like this one that's spinning with the 60 triangles each one of those triangles is equal to the face of the pyramid at Giza. And that follows particular geometries that relate to the human body. And so what I mean by that, I can show that to people in this image. As long as you invited people to see the images, you can see that these spirals that we find in a nautilus shell, in broccoli, in sunflowers, and even galaxies, it follows particular relationships that reflect the way the human body is constructed. You can see that from that relationship, the length of the hand to the from the tip of the fingers to the wrist to the elbow is in this relationship, the head to the navel to the feet. It's like this caliper that I have measures that relationship, and my middle finger, the first digit to my whole finger, my finger to my wrist, my hand to my elbow, it keeps working with this relationship. And that relationship is found in the Great Pyramid at Giza. It's found in this geometry. And beneath it is another geometry that what's fun about that is that when you start looking at things we call the Platonic solids, and whoops, sorry about that.
No
I'm
problem.
going to there. All the Platonic solids, if you add up the degrees on their surfaces, you can end up with the exact diameter of the sun, the diameter of the earth, and the diameter of the moon that reflect these geometries that the earth, the moon, and the sun were formed following those patterns. And then if you take something like the diameter of the moon plus the diameter of the earth, that's going to give us this geometry that's sitting next to me, the same number of degrees. And this also works with the way the body's created, with this particular ratio called the phi ratio. So the way the moon and the earth dance together in their diameters and in a number of other measures and things that we share in our book, they are vibrating with that energy that is holding life. And this isn't just the way human beings are created, but all life. When you look at the DNA within everything, all animals, plants, and even insects follow these patterns. So we can bring that pattern into our environment and it starts to resonate, just like a C tuning fork will resonate with a C tone. And then that vibration starts to affect us, and we can start to vibrate with the fuller part of who we are, really the bigger part, because like you talk about, we're here in the third dimension, but that's like an iceberg that only shows 10% above the water. The majority of us is hidden. And it's that hidden part that when we start to absorb who we really are on the fullness of these other dimensional levels, that's when we can become more completely human and start to exhibit more compassion, more connection, more understanding for everything going on in our environment and in this world today.
And that's something a lot of people, a lot of people look at, there's geometry and sacred geometry, and they're like, so what is the difference between those two, regular geometry, and what makes it sacred? What makes it that that difference in there.
Well, I think it's the approach of how we understand it. Because when it comes down to it, really everything is sacred, right? It's
Yes.
whether or not we understand it. But we call it sacred geometry because it explores the roots, the foundation. And what's important with all that too is that the foundation of all creation is consciousness. And that consciousness is love. And that is sacred. So the more we explore what really is at those depths, we can connect to it in that intrinsic way that is so important for us to elevate our lives to, so that we really can be vessels of the love and light that we're capable of. And so, that's what makes it sacred. And, when I first heard the term sacred geometry, I had met, actually, it was before, or when I was first getting to know Gregory, I met an architect here in Colorado. And he had been exploring sacred geometry. And so he started showing me what that meant and how it was used to build physical structures so that people could then feel that they could, they could be in a place that would help them feel connected. And, certainly we know that if you walk into a beautiful place in nature, which is sacred geometry, right? And
Yes.
it's absolutely sacred. And you hear the sound of the river, and you feel the breeze, and you hear the birds, and you have all this beautiful life around you. That's sacred, and it's radiating structure. It's the structure that universe has taken, that energy has come into this physical realm for us to have this life. And yet, even though we're so fixated on physicality, the truth is that that's only a very, very tiny part of who we are, because we are energy. And if you look at the molecular structure of anything, it's mostly space. And what is that? It's consciousness, it's love, it's that energy that we can reconnect ourselves to. And so, that's really what makes sacred geometry sacred. And when we started to go to workshops with some masters of sacred geometry, a gentleman named Keith Critchlow, and this was back in the mid 80s. And he would always start off the program with a meditation. And he would take us into where it was connected into these different sacred religions or sacred learnings, whatever, sacred texts. And it's wonderful to take us ourselves back into understanding that really everything is sacred. And with our consciousness, we can create in a sacred way.
I love that. And especially I love the fact when you talked about love itself and bringing ourselves back to that love aspect, because I'm a big proponent of it. So I was like, this is all about love. This is really loving yourself, loving where you're at, loving being here, and loving everything that's connecting us to the rest of us. We look at ourselves a lot of times as just human, but we're so much more. And I like the iceberg analogy you did, where you're seeing this much of it and the rest is all to be uncovered. And when you're doing this sacred geometry, and I'm just going to go back a little bit, you yourself, Gail, being an artist, you're looking at things in a different structural way than most other people. I feel like how you look at things is different. When you were and you're still the artist, not that you weren't before, but when you're doing your artistry, are you looking for repeating patterns? What are you looking for when you're doing your artwork?
Oh, wow. That's an interesting question. Um, I don't think then, I'm trying to think back when I was really active doing my painting. I was really looking at understanding light, the technology of light, and how I could create just from pure light. So I was working with flows of color and looking at it in different ways to create like a surface, an environment that people could get into. And from there, they could explore. Because what was important to me was that it offered people something that took them to a deeper realm of who they are, their connections. And so, yeah, exploring the structure of light is very interesting because our eyes don't facilitate that very well. In order to understand that, you have to use your higher awareness.
I love that. And the reason, so for those of you who don't know, I have a team in the non-physical on the other side, and they wanted to go down that path a little more to realize that as you use all these different tools to look at who you are shining light on yourself to see yourself in a whole new light and to open yourself up to what else is out there and to look at yourself. And they love the fact where you said you turned with turning the light to look at it in a different way. They would really love all of us to explore all the different ways to look at us, to shine the light on us in different ways, to find that sacred geometry that is unique to all of us that is within you. And that's something, so I'm glad that they wanted to talk about light and the sacred geometry. And even for those of you who are watching, to see in the background the sacred geometry as they're moving, as they're turning, you're seeing a different aspect of each of them back there. And I feel that's something, and a lot of people do sacred geometry, and it's a lot of like flat instead of versus the more the 3D, and you do a lot more of the 3D. And what brought you more into doing the 3D? Was that something that I think it's probably more towards you, Gregory. Was the 3D more of something that was more interesting to you than just the flat?
It goes far beyond interest. It goes into the essence, I think, of what sacred geometry is about, which is moving energy. That's why in our title, we talk about sacred geometry as a universal language, and universal meaning it can go anywhere in the universe and it works, and also anywhere on other dimensional levels, and it works. So, and the way it works, we say the universal language of divine alignment. So this is really the way the divine, the highest levels of creation, move through into the third dimension, and that higher energy aligns with the physical through three-dimensional geometry. You see, two-dimensional geometry, in all honesty, is an illusion. It doesn't exist except in your head. That is, when you open a book about trees and you're looking at all these different trees, they aren't real trees, but in your head, you're making that transition and saying, oh, this is an oak tree. I've seen an oak tree before versus a maple tree. And yet, when you close the book, you don't see them anymore. Those trees in your mind, they don't get stimulated by that book anymore. So, sacred geometry, I think the essence of it is moving energy into this third dimensional reality. And I could do that by building three-dimensional forms that act like an antenna system that will resonate completely with higher vibrational energy. And in 2D, that's one step beneath 3D, and it just exists flat, where if you turn that flat piece of paper sideways, it disappears. So that's why I was drawn to doing what really was making a difference in the environment and creating energy. Sometimes people feel energies from two-dimensional drawings and so forth. But I think it's really what they're bringing, their understanding, their intent, their focus, because we're amazing beings and we create so much all the time from our inner focus and our inner understanding. We project it out into the world and things can shift, but we have to really give the power to our unseen aspects of our being that manifest in this world.
I love that. And I love the fact you started making the connection between us as the physical beings and how sacred geometry affects us energetically on the physical level. And I know you've done different work and how sacred geometry is connected to everything within us health-wise. Have you noticed when did you when did you make the connection between the sacred geometry and energetically and then working with our own personal well-being?
Well, I mean, that started happening right away almost when I had this box of forms that I was playing with, and Gail could feel the energy. And then our interplay back and forth for these 40 years has really helped us both grow so much and understand and help me understand what it is I've been building and how to use them. Because sometimes I would get direction to build this, or Gail would say, last night they came to me and they said, we need to build this new pendant or make this tool or something. And we started building these things and we didn't often know what it was we were doing. It wasn't until people started reacting to them and people would say, oh my gosh, when I put this on my body, the pain goes away. The pain leaves because the pain was a blockage. Pain was somehow existing on maybe a mental level, on maybe an emotional level, on a physical level, on so many different levels. We work with wanting to have energy flow, and yet we block that flow. And when you bring in an energy, like I said, it's like a tuning fork uh, that starts vibrating with a tone, or you can use certain frequencies like tuning forks on the body, and you can work with some of these geometries on the body, near the body, in an environment, and people's physical body, they can feel it changing. They can notice they're thinking differently. They notice that the energy they're putting out shifts the environment around them. Like the pendants that we're wearing, I've had one grandmother say, I love this pendant because my grandchildren used to run away from me when I visited, and now they crawl all over me. And a prison guard said, prisoners treat me much better when I'm wearing this pendant or when I'm carrying one of your devices in my pocket, because his vibration shifts. And other people notice that. The universe notices that. And when you shift, the universe shifts to accommodate you, to accommodate the amount of love that you're bringing through, the amount of awareness that you're bringing through, the amount of compassion that you're bringing through. And it feeds back to you more and more of that love and that compassion into your life, because the universe knows it has a fluid outlet for the essence of what it really is here to do, which is to envelop us with that love and consciousness that is everything, everywhere.
You know, it's a important thing to realize um, the transition of our, the energy into our physical. So we understand how sacred geometry creates our physical world, right? So if we're resonating with the way, with those patterns, with the essence and the love of creation, then what's going to happen? It's going to flow in a really important, in a really good way. And, we know that the way that our consciousness affects everything from what we manifest, healing, intuition, all kinds of stuff. And yet we're still surprised when these things really impact our physical. So I'll tell you another little story. Exactly 1 year ago today, I came back from spending 7 days in the ICU in the hospital in Boulder, Colorado, because I had had a really bad fall, injured myself very badly, and had spinal cord compression and needed spinal cord surgery. And trust me, I wasn't ready for that one. But
No.
when I landed on my hands and knees and I couldn't feel my body, I just said to spirit, I said, no, I cannot be a paraplegic in my life. And within maybe, 10 minutes or so, I could start to feel that I could move my fingers or my legs a little bit. And so while I was in the emergency room, after I had ambulanced to the hospital, and this neurosurgeon is sitting there across from me saying, well, you're going to need spinal cord surgery. And I
Wow.
went, wow, I don't think I'm ready for that one. What are my alternatives? And she said, well, if you don't do anything, you'll probably heal to some extent, but you'll have a very high risk of becoming a paraplegic. Interesting that she
Wow.
used that same word, right?
Wow. Yes.
At which point that was a cue that spirit was saying something to me. And I said, okay, I'm very uncomfortable with this, but I think I'm going to have to sign up for this one. Anyhow, I've gone through, that kind of surgery is a very long recovery process, which I'm still in. Yesterday, I went to the neurosurgeon for my last appointment, my follow-up after a year, getting another couple of x-rays, which I really didn't want to do because I don't like x-rays, but I just figured, okay, got to surrender to this. And what was very interesting was that the doctor was looking at the x-rays going, this is phenomenal. The bone growth, she was looking at, like where I was impacted in my neck. And where they had like a plate and screws and all that stuff. She said, the bone growth that you have there is phenomenal. We don't
Wow.
usually see that in this amount of time. And in addition to that, I'm 74 years old and I have osteoporosis. So that's not what you'd normally see in my condition, right? And
Absolutely.
yet I am around all of these energy forms that we live with in our home. I meditate with them. I sit in our little healing area with them every day and work with these energies. And as a result, here is a real physical, tangible reality that says, this is what happens. Your bones remembered how to grow and do it in such a good way. We have that memory. Our bodies, our psyches, our hearts, our higher consciousness, when we're connected properly, we know that. And so our tools are so valuable because it sets it up for us. It puts us in that, that environment so we can do what naturally we're meant to do.
That is amazing. And I am so glad you're on the road to recovery because that is a big, big,
Yeah.
that is a major medical thing going on there. So
Yeah,
I'm glad you're on the road to recovery. And I'm
I
glad
am. I
I'm
am.
they're also saying, I'm also hearing from the other side, they're saying, see how modern medicine and all the alternatives can work together in tandem to create that beautiful space of healing in all ways. And that's something to show, to be open, just like they're saying, just like all of you are multidimensional, so are all the ways of healing and understanding each other, to use all of them. And I think I thank you so much for sharing that story, because I think it's very important for people to hear that that can make a difference. And how, they're going back there, my team is saying you need to go back when you said the body remembers what it needs to. The body remembers. And it's a lot of this is us remembering who we are, remembering what we can connect to, remembering. And the body does remember, and the body can, they're saying, regenerate to a lot of extent if you remember and you're using the tools that work for you. And your tools are absolutely amazing to see and to feel, because they are, that is something with the energetic aspect, to feel the energy from the tools. And for those of you who are more in tune to the energy, even watching the tools and seeing the tools behind, you will feel that energy coming off of them. So that is so good.
Yeah.
And
Remembering, Angela, is really a word that is bringing the parts back together. And you take the total member of us and you remember it. You bring in this part and that part. We are rebuilding this sacred human by working on all these different levels and bringing it back into relationship. And so when we find that relationship within our beingness, that's when we discover the relationship between all of us and everything going on.
I love that. And I love, they want me to kind of go back a little bit when you were talking about the pendants that people were wearing and how it made a difference. And they just want to go in a little bit deeper on that, about when you, the pendants, you're remembering that you're something different, you're multidimensional, you're full of pure love. And by having that remembrance on you, it's almost a physical reminder to yourself that by you focusing on that, remembering that, you also see it in others, and they see it in you. They see that love in you. They see that you see other people in also that divine light, that multidimensional divine light. And that's something I think for both of you to have brought that out, for people to realize that connection and to bring this world into another dimension, per se, as we continue to go forward. Have you found more people are interested in what you're doing? You're getting more impact with people, and people you might not have had expected to contact you are contacting you.
Certainly. It's so much fun that just the other day, we have these forms that shift the electromagnetic field impact in an area. So what I mean by that is people often try to block electromagnetic fields, EMFs, but you can't block it because we so depend upon it. I mean, our communication right now is working with equipment, computers, and lines and so forth that are generating these frequencies that are separating us from higher self. So what the key is to actually create that connection. And that's what we're able to do vibrationally. So here is a close-up of the pendants that we're wearing. And this is one pendant and the two sides. So our pendants have one side that is very grounding when it's toward you, and the other side moves it up. It has over 35 internal antenna systems, circuit boards, oscillating crystals, photon generators, things that are moving energy, and the patterns that we see on the surface. We found ways of taking three-dimensional geometries and working with them in a two-dimensional antenna system. So that's how we've managed that. And what it's doing is, to begin with, as your guidance suggests, it's a reminder. And that is, again, when we see it, taking our focus into another place, but it's literally not just reminding, it's re-physicaling, it's re-emotionaling, it's re-psychologically, it's taking all the aspects of us and bringing it into relationship with a higher vibrational potential. You see, that's what some of the things we've created that can help us overcome the difficulties and the blockages of this reality, the fears, the toxins, the judgments, all the stress that disconnects us, all these different things. If we can be in that vibrational state that Gail was talking about, being in nature, what if we could have that same vibration of sitting under a tree next to a stream be flowing through us while we're there in front of our computer, at a board meeting, at the hospital, waiting for a friend to come out? All these different things in our lives, if we can be in that state of connection, in that vibrational state of wholeness that allows us to feel the love that we are, the natural aspects of who we are, rather than all the unnatural aspects of who we are, the cars and the fumes and the stress of getting to the next place when there's a traffic jam that goes on for miles. And all of these energies affect our beingness. And so these tools come and affect our beingness on all these different levels that allow us to truly flourish as a natural human being that is a very loving being. That's why it's so difficult to watch the fear and the separation going on in the world right now, because all the people that are experiencing this, at the core of their being, we all want to connect and recognize that we're here to support each other.
I love that. And I love the fact that, we are humans living in a human world where you're going to have the traffic jams. You're going to have the people that might not always be the funnest to be around you and to have all of those around you, but to realize we have the tools within us. And sometimes that physical reminder, having that pendant, having those different things on us to physically remind us, going, wait, we are more than that. We are love. We can experience it without taking on the fear, without taking on the anger, and be able to observe it without experiencing it ourselves. And I think that's something really important for people to realize. This isn't a time to cover your head and totally block out everything in the world, but it is a time to know that you can rise above it. You can look at it, and they're taking the light and they're shine the light on it differently, seeing it in a different light, reacting to it in a different light, and moving beyond fear. Because when you realize how divine and how beautiful and how amazing we all are, there is nothing to fear except anything you put out there. There is nothing to fear.
Absolutely.
Very true.
Yeah. And, that's one of the things that I am so thrilled about with the pendant is, it's all about connection.
Yeah.
And yeah, we have the sacred geometry that you see on the surface that we've created to show the different three-dimensional aspects. However, what's real significant is what's inside that you don't see. It's all these different antenna systems that are all three-dimensional, that are, things that come out of nature that resonate in such a way that they shift us. They open ourselves up to higher connection. Our vibration is changed. And that's what's really so significant, that when that happens, then our lives change.
Yeah.
Our intuition takes off. It becomes a much more profound part of who we are. I remember that when I first put our first pendant on that we were making, and I was wearing it for a little while, and I went, oh my gosh, I used to procrastinate all the time, and now I don't anymore. Because energetically, what happened was that my purpose, my connection with higher self and with all that is, was more important than the distractions that played a larger role previously. That was really important. And then just, seeing how things like serendipity, that's actually a really natural thing. We're supposed to do that because we're supposed to resonate in such a way that we connect with the right situations and the people that we're thinking of and whatever, we're capable of. And yet the distractions in our lives have dominated more. So all of our tools are really based on creating that connection. And when we're connected, then things just happen in the flow in which they're supposed to. And energetically, the way things are happening universally right now and all the different galactic shifts that are happening, I believe we're going to see a lot more of that.
Absolutely. There's going to be a lot more shifts coming up. But it's knowing those shifts are coming up, but knowing we don't have to fear them. We can embrace the change going forward. And they want me to go back to something you talked about, the love. When you're looking at the world and looking at people around you in love, it creates a change in the world and it creates a change in you. And you both have fully embraced that love. I can tell. And as you've done that, have you seen a change in your lives and how you looked at even the crazy that's been happening in the world? Have you looked at it differently, and has it helped you having this connection going through the challenges in life?
It's shown up in so many places. And in my higher self has also worked with me in the dream state. And I found myself a while ago walking in a forest path with someone. And as I was walking, it got colder. And we had our shirts off, I think, and I felt him put his hand on my back, and it warmed me. It warmed me all the way through to my heart, and it opened my heart. And then I really recognized who it was I was walking with. And if you pick the biggest political dark guy that you have in your belief system, that's who was next to me. And I felt, oh my God, here he is. And this didn't change the way I feel about him politically, but it made me, every time I see him, I remember that dream and realize that it's all a play. I do the best I can to support people, to pick policies and politicians that support people, that love people, that are doing things positive for the environment. Those are the kinds of things I like to choose. And yet the players, I can't let that play and the players keep throwing me off my game. That's not the way to do this life. And that dream showed me how much that love is there. And 1,000 years from now, 20,000 years, 50,000 years in the past, the same love and consciousness was creating, developing, and recreating and redeveloping. And so this is what we have an opportunity to be part of.
Absolutely. And having the love. And for me, it's the time to put the division aside and let's look at people with love because everyone there, everyone has a purpose. Everyone is doing what they feel is right for them. And to look at everyone with love, and they all have their own journey. And having that, taking that division away, so important going forward. And looking at everyone with love
Yeah.
is so important going forward.
And you know, Angela, I believe that the issue that we're facing here with that division is that fear divides and
Yes.
love brings us together.
Yes.
Love is about unity. And so as we're looking out and seeing things that, you know, are creating stress in our lifetime, what we need is to reconnect. What we need is to allow ourselves to feel how we're part of this unity, how we belong, and how we can allow that love to really flow in our lives. It's not a time of pushing anymore. It's a time of allowing. And, you know, being in that place where we embrace that feminine aspect of energy of allowing, not dominating, not, you know, doing all these things that in the past worked to control things. It's not about that. It's coming together in a beautiful dance of unity and love.
I love
So,
that. And it's
yeah.
the coming together because if people take the time to let go of all the labels that's been put out there, many, many labels. If we let go of those and we actually just talk to each other with love, looking at that person as that person is also love, we can a lot of times find a lot of common ground that we are all going for. And the fear and the division makes it so we can't find the common ground, but we are here to find the common ground, and we will, and we are. And that is something I am so excited to be part of and to be part of here. And having people like you and Gregory putting that information out there, reaching people. And when you wrote your book, it's called, you see, The Sacred Geometry, the Universal Language of Divine Alignment. I think that is so important for people. If you're interested in sacred geometry and all, I mean, Gregory and Gail have spent many, 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 many years researching all of this. You don't have to spend the amount of years researching it and experiencing it and playing with it like they have. And instead, you can go off of their knowledge and their experience and check out their book because there is so much in there to help you move forward, to find that divine alignment. That sacred geometry, like you said, is that tool that helps us discover who we really are, that divine alignment within us. And that is something so important for people to realize. There was something I had took some quotes off on there. And I'm just going to take something I had found. So it said, for Gail, it said, in your 20s, you saw a world in a great need of wisdom and higher values, which attracted you to become a political activist. After several years of organizing, lobbying, protesting, and advocating, which often ended in frustration, everything seemed to fall apart, and you realize that things don't change on the outside without the fundamental shifts. It's the inside or the inner world that is the crucial place to work. And I just found that so profound, especially at this point in our history. And to find that, and for both of you to then take this journey of bringing it all together and working on the inner circle, the inner world. And as you've done that, do you now see the world differently going forward?
Oh, yeah.
All the time. It makes it so much easier to be part of the whole play. There were times where I would just be mesmerized by watching dust motes in the air and realize these are just all bits of consciousness. We are all bits of consciousness, and we are really coming together more than we realize. And so seeing the togetherness, seeing the consciousness behind every play, it makes all of the events in our lives so much easier to work with. I mean, what Gail went through a year ago, that was an extreme event, and yet we both saw it right away. We saw the higher beings that were involved with the process that lessened the impact and yet created the impact at the same time because of a certain karmic need, a certain place in growth that needed to be expressed at that time. That was 2 weeks before we were supposed to be done with our book. So it played with our whole timeline. Everything plays with timelines, but it's like how many years ago now? Probably about 11 years ago, we had a major flood that took away hundreds and hundreds of thousands of tons of earth from in front of our home. It came within a few feet of our driveway pad and left a 30-foot cliff and
Wow.
took away all the infrastructure. And yet, just before that flood happened, we were doing a ceremony thanking the universe for everything it was about to give us. And then this flood happened. And in so many ways, it's been incredible gift. And it shifted things. It shifted our environment. So it looks totally different. And when you can recognize all of the play of universe at the time it's happening and be in that place where you're coming from your beingness, so it's all okay, and not just okay, but enjoyable. Enjoy the challenges, enjoy the free skates, enjoy the ups, enjoy the downs, enjoy all the curves. And that can happen when you're coming at it from this place inside of connection.
I love the fact that you said to enjoy the curves, enjoy what you're experiencing, even though a lot of people would look at it as that was absolutely terrible. That would have been just, the worst thing. But realizing when you're going through it, it's like there's something I'm learning. It's an experience I'm experiencing now. And you've had some big ones with, I mean, that's big to have everything, flooding away around your home and having the landscape completely changed. And then with Gail doing with your surgery and with your accident that you had. But one thing I really love is for people to see how you're looking at it differently, tapping into that higher consciousness, seeing it differently and not letting it take you down, because a lot of times the fear and the things that happen to us, oh, they want me to back up. They said, because so many people look at the more you get in tune to yourself and the more you tap into higher consciousness, that no bad things will ever happen to you ever again. And they want, they,
Yes, it'll
want,
all be just perfect,
It's not the action that's bad, it's your interpretation
Yeah.
that
So,
makes it so.
so here's the word that's very, very important with all this is no matter what's going on in our lives in every moment, be in a place of awe, awe, which opens us up to the wonderment, the love of it all, the joy of it all, the understanding. And no, it doesn't always, I mean, it hurts sometimes. However, it's only an interpretation. And I remember that when I was going through my fall, I was like in this place of hyper consciousness. And I felt this hand on my back that was pushing me. And it was like, wow. But there was no fear. I was in a place of awe as it was happening. And that freed me. And it wasn't anything that I was trying to like, oh, I should go through this experience it all. No, it was natural. I allowed myself to experience the awe and wonderment of it all, which then enabled me to have the most beneficial things happen in response to it all, and to, to really reap the higher benefits of what it is, the understanding, the connection. And the connections that happened because of this experience were extraordinary. We've been together for almost 40 years, and yet I have to say in the last year, our relationship, which has always been extremely close, got so much closer, so much deeper. It was profound. And no, I mean, would I call something like that in order to have that happen? No, but it's what it was. And that's what soul and universe provides for us to get to those levels of who we really are.
And I think that's the so important for people to hear. You react differently. You take in events differently. Your reaction is so different when you start really realizing you're so much more than just human. And to have, with all the tools you two have created, invented, and worked with for many years and are still creating and doing as you go forward, because that never stops.
Right.
One of the biggest problems we have as human beings is taking our lives too personally.
Oh,
And
yes.
if we can move to these higher dimensional levels, have that perspective of what's going on, then we can start to understand that the play we're in is happening for the benefit of so many. Let's just be part of one of the observers of this event and do the best we can without saying that person personally tried to damage me. And so therefore, blah, 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 back and forth, we just get caught up in the play.
And that is very true. And it's a lot of, many past how we've been trained, let's say, to kind of, that's our first instinct. It's been very well trained within us, and we are breaking those cycles and changing it back to who we really are. And that is something so different and so full of the love that's out there. It is so important. And that's something I am so impressed with both of you helping so many people with, and will continue to help people with going forward. And I am so excited to share and for people to make sure to check out your website. And again, that is I connect to all. I connect to all. And I have there on there, awesome. It's iconnecttoall.com, and you can check out their chapter. You check out all of the other information that's out there, because there is so much great information on their website, on all of their channels, all their social media aspects. So make sure to check that out for sure. And with the one thing, there was something else I had gotten off, and it says from both of you that you had on there, is our potential growth and spiritual evolution lie in activating and creating a coherent relationship with the higher vibrational parts of our being that exist on all dimensional levels. It's time to release the phrase from the heart and replace it with through the heart. And I thought that was so profound, and for people to realize there is so much going on with your heart energy, and at this time to really, really tap into it, to take that time, because it's important for not only yourself, but our world moving forward.
Absolutely.
And it really is important to understand that as multi-dimensional beings, the heart is a portal and it's a doorway. So we aren't just operating within our brain and that's where all the thoughts are generated. That's a non-local phenomena where higher self can work through the heart to operate the brain. and we can tune in to an unlimited amount of information in the universe and have that come together within our understanding through the use of the physical brain. And it pumps into our being through the heart from higher self, from vast stores of consciousness everywhere. And, the animal kingdom does it in a way where science writes it off as I should say,
Oh, instinct.
instinct.
Yes.
It's all instinct. And yet they're doing amazing things, and we can
Yes.
do those same amazing things when we open to that higher realm of who we are.
I love that because I feel, this is my opinion, so I'm just going to put my opinion out there, is I feel our intuitive instincts that we have ourselves have been taught out of us, and we are now stepping back in to increase our intuition that we've had always.
Definitely. Yeah.
Well, I want to thank both of you. And is there something you'd like to cover before we close today?
We've
Wow,
covered a lot.
Boy, we covered a lot.
Oh, we have.
And if you open that can, we'll keep pouring out. So it may be time to take a break.
Yeah, maybe we'll have to have dinner together,
Our people will be
Yes.
tired of listening.
Well, I want to thank both of you so much for all of your time, for sharing your knowledge. I appreciate it so much. I appreciate all you're doing because you are making a huge impact for now and going forward. And for people, I encourage people, check into their book. And it is the Sacred Geometry, the Universal Language of Divine Alignment. You have the free chapter that'll be in the links below. They also have the Meditations of Universal Patterns of Sacred Geometry. That is also out there, and all of their information, and also their website, iconnecttoall.com. And check out their Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube because there's so much information out there. And I just want to thank both of you so much again for all of your time. I appreciate you both.
Oh,
Thank you. Same.
Angela.
Same. This
A
was
lot
so
of
much
love
fun.
to
Really
you
enjoyed it.
and your support team. We
Oh,
all have such amazing support teams, and so many of them are underused because people
yes.
just don't ask. But they're there if you ask.
I love that. You need to ask. And this is your cue for all of you out there. Ask. Ask and look and learn and expand your knowledge because there's so much out there that will make your life so much better. And that is so important. So thank you again, Gail and Gregory, so much for your time and sharing your knowledge with everyone. I appreciate it greatly. And I know all of them do it. My team is just thank you, thank you, thank you.
Well, thank you to your team too. Yeah.
And then for all of you out there, make sure to watch the next episodes of Edge Talk Radio. They are on the first and third Tuesdays of the month at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. If you missed any past episodes, no worries. You can listen to the downloadable podcast, or you can watch the interview on my YouTube channel, Angela Zabel, Teacher Coach Medium. And I want to thank all of you listening. Thank you for your time. And I appreciate that all of you together and all of us together, we are all expanding and amplifying our universe together. Have an absolute